Thank you. That was beautiful. Good morning, and welcome to the Boulder Valley Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Hello, people on Zoom. Hello, people in the sanctuary. I'm Gloria Pearlstein. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm joined today by Service Associate Claire Marie Wall. And also speaking today are Janet Meyer, Stephanie Tooley, and Kitty Kalebarn, who, like Claire Marie, were all delegates from our congregation to the UU General Assembly in June. Today's music is provided by Tad Korieth, and we're glad to see him back. Jinna Lim on violin. And Amy Austin, our hymn leader this morning. Today's tech team is Larry Sherwood, Paula Zimmerman, and Karen Grigolia. We also have a special guest this morning. He is Grayson Holt from Thorn Nature Center. Thorn has been using our building this summer as a home base for its nature-based summer camp, and Grayson is the camp director. Grayson?
Hello, hello. Thank you, Gloria. As Gloria said, my name is Grayson Holt. My pronouns are he. um, and I'm the summer camp manager at Thorn Nature Experience, and we are very grateful that we were allowed to be here this summer to operate as our home base for our summer camp explorations. I wanted to introduce, I'm here with a couple of the instructors that were here on site as well. We've got Christian right here.
Hi.
Erica as well. And Stacy. And primarily I wanted to come today and show you what we were able to do with your assistance in this home site that with the increasing severity of climate change, we need a building. In the past, it was typically all outdoors, and we could do that. Now we need refuge, and so thank you for this space that was a refuge. I want to show the people on Zoom. But because of this facility and your assistance, we were able to do a few things like play games and perform. And so it's kind of difficult to see with this resolution, but there are really large smiles on these instructors and campers' faces during these games. One of the favorite activities is when we do a game and it's campers versus instructors. Oh. In the bottom right there, you see really the street right out here in the shade. We were able to do talent shows at the end of each session, each 2-week session. And so the kids also got to perform and do silly puppet shows and, what am I, kind of charade games, and they really enjoyed those moments. We were also able to meet neat animals and creatures. I especially love this bottom right picture. This young man had a grasshopper on his hand for 45 minutes one day. And he just, grasshoppers are really fun companions. And these 3 young ladies right here, looking at Coal Creek right over there, there's a flock of turkeys you may have seen if you live along the creek. There's a small flock of turkeys. And so they were able to spot some turkeys and some, I don't even know what the chicks are called. Chicks maybe, but what? Poults. Ah, yes, like poultry. Yes, the little poults. So that really special moments. Butterflies. We saw a mink at Golden Ponds, and so some really lovely moments meeting different animals. We were also able to, what does this one say? Share meaningful moments. It's really apropos that this beautiful rendition of a rose, when a rose opens, is that what it, yeah. Because one of our activities at the end of each day is a rose, bud, and thorn, where we'll discuss the thorn being something challenging or difficult in the day, the bud, being something beautiful that's coming or that you're excited about, and the rose being a special moment from that day. So, telling that story of this is something that happened to me. So yeah, very special moments there. We were also able to mentor and reflect. In this age of devices and electronics and agendas and schedules, we don't have much time to decompress and just be. And so this is really what we were able to do. Here at Coal Creek, we visited Rogers Grove and Golden Ponds in Longmont. We got to go to Chautauqua, is where this photo's from, and Sanitas as well. And these mountaintop moments where you're able to just be with a friend, sit and kind of just chat and be in nature. And then mentorship as well. We were able to, make lasting impressions on some of these kids that hopefully we've got more scientists, more environmentalists, more teachers and people who are connected with nature. And finally, the last thing we got to do was also, as instructors and adults, connect with our inner child, ourselves. It brings out the goofy in us, and the silly, and the playful, and the immature, if you will. And so that was really a special gift to be able to share camp here. And so finally, I want to say thank you very much.
Thank you, Grayson. Grayson will have a table in Fellowship Hall after the service, so you can talk with them and the counselors and then learn more about Thorn Nature Center and the program. As I say the welcome words today, I invite you to really take them in. You are all welcome here today. In the beauty of the languages, cultures, skin tones, shapes, and sizes, gifts and challenges that come together in your unique being, you are welcome here. In the beauty of who you love and how you love, you are welcome here. With all the traditions that inform your spiritual life, you are welcome here today. No matter how long you've been away, nor how soon you return, you are welcome. Whether you come with laughter in your heart today or tears, you are welcome here. You are invited to join us with a curious mind, a loving heart, and a willing spirit. We welcome you today. If you're new here, we're glad you found us and hope that you can feel the love and warmth of this congregation. Please come back a few times to really get to know us. We have many opportunities during the week for social connection and spiritual growth. Newcomers on Zoom, you can check out the links in the chat to help you get connected. And those in person can stop by the welcome table in our foyer for more information. Or use the QR code in the back of the hymnal. Everyone on Zoom is welcome to stay for casual conversation after the service. And if you're here in person, you're welcome to stay for coffee hour in Fellowship Hall. If you're on Zoom, please feel free to greet each other in the Zoom chat now. And if you're a newcomer, please let us know. And those here in person, please take a moment to greet your neighbor. Hello, Claire Marie. Yes. Mm-hmm.
I always hate to stop everybody, don't you?
I know, I do too. Yes. There will be time after the service to say hello to people you didn't have a chance to greet this morning. Now we're going to light our chalice. If you have a chalice at home, you can light it as we light the fellowship chalice. Please say the words along with me as Claire Marie lights our chalice. We light this chalice for the warmth of love, the light of truth, and the energy of action. And now I'll sing our bowl again, inviting it to draw you deeper into the present moment and this beloved community.
My name is Clara Marie Wall. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am a white woman in my 70s with long gray-brown hair in a top knot, wearing glasses, a flowered cotton dress, and a crystal necklace. By way of similar words, the speakers among the 2,757 delegates from 734 congregations introduced themselves during the annual Unitarian Universalist General Assembly this past June 2024, for the sake of those who are visually impaired in some way. We were busy people. During the 4 days of GA, delegates voted to ratify a new version of Article 2 of the UUA bylaws, which is the expression of our faith with love at the center. We approved 3 actions of immediate witness, AIWs, they're called, including, quote, solidarity with Palestinians, and also one responsive resolution that came up after that, support for October 7 hostages, in response to that AIW. We voted for an important business resolution, quote, embracing transgender, non-binary, intersex, and gender-diverse people, and more. There was a memorable webinar that was titled Fat Liberation at the Intersection by Anastasia Kidd, and another was on a Black trans retelling of the world. The Ware lecture was inspiring, particularly coming from both the Judaic and the world of challenging disabilities. The Sunday service, which a lot of you saw, was exuberant, unfortunately taped. But generally, we argued together. We agreed together, we worshiped together, and we learned together online this year rather than in person. So what makes the General Assembly important for us? But more than even a political convention, it is the yearly occasion when actual changes to our UU faith and also crucial action items to guide the year's social action work in our nation's congregations, they receive votes. The AIWs, quote, express the conscience and carry the authority of the delegates, and the major change to our bylaws after multiple years of discussion and controversy and votes occurred with an 80% majority. More on that later. GA matters. Being a delegate matters. For some of us, there were joys. For some, there were concerns. But we had thorns, buds, and roses, to use Grayson's language. We thought you ought to know a bit about them. You can always, of course, go to the UUA websites and learn much more, and I recommend that. But today, some of your 2024 delegates from this fellowship, with Gloria acting as MC and lion tamer, hope to share a few of the General Assembly joys and concerns during a sort of roundtable, well, I guess semicircle, to give you a sense of our GA experiences and to open up a time even for you to ask questions about what GA is all about. If you do have a question, I left a few cards on the ends of rows with pens. Please fill out a 3x5 card and place it in the offertory plate as it goes by. We may be able to get to them, we may not, but it'd be wonderful to have those questions from you. And if you are on Zoom, you could type out your question in the Zoom chat. We'll try to find it also. And we hope to have some time to answer those at the end of the roundtable. And to end, I must share one joy about which there was no disagreement, at least among us. We delegates were delighted to vote to confirm Emily Koriath, who is, of course, the music director of the UU Church of Boulder and our friend, as a new UUA trustee for 3 years. And so go, Emily. Thank you.
Number 34, Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire. Again, in your gray hymnal, number 34, Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire. Would you rise in body or spirit and join me in singing all verses?
Each week, we remind ourselves of the abundance of our lives and this community by giving half of our plate away to those organizations that share our values. Today, the half plate is for Community Food Share, the on-site food pantry. Continuing our summer offerings that recognize the area organizations working to alleviate food insecurity, half the plate will go to Community Food Share, that is the hub for food collection and distribution. The on-site food pantry at the CFS location is in Louisville. It's open 3 days a week to provide free groceries like milk, produce, pantry staples, and your contributions will go far toward the distribution of 27,000 meals a day through its varied programs. To find out more about the program, or to volunteer, or to receive food, you can go to communityfoodshare.org. So text your donation, please, at the number on the screen or in the Zoom chat, or if you're in the fellowship, you can place a donation in the offering plate. Also, if you do have a question for our GA delegates, please write it on one of the 3x5 cards that are around. Pass them down if you need to. And if you're on Zoom, you could type your question into the Zoom chat now. Thank you.
Thank you for the work of this fellowship, bringing love, reason, compassion, and justice to life, and for the work of Community Food Shares on-site food pantry. We accept and dedicate these gifts. Thank you. And now I invite us into our time of community connection, our time of sacred sharing. If you're on Zoom and would like to share a joy or concern, please type it briefly into the chat. I will read it aloud, and Claire Marie will add a stone to our sacred waters on your behalf. If you're in the sanctuary today and have a joy or concern from the heart, please come up front and share briefly, holding the microphone straight out in front of you, and add a stone to our waters, or you can add a stone in silence. And Claire Marie, please put one last stone for any joys and concerns that remain in the silent sanctuary of our hearts, knowing that even in our silence, we're bound together in the web of life. And I pray, Spirit of love and life, thank you for bringing us together today. May those who need healing find healing. May those who have joy about family events and changes in their and growth in their families, may their hearts continue to be glad. And may we all be a blessing to each other and to the world around us, which so urgently needs our care. Amen, and blessed be.
Let's have an opportunity to sing again together in your gray hymnal, number 128, For All That Is Our Life. Again, it's in the gray hymnal, number 128. We'll sing all the verses. Would you rise in body or spirit? For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. For needs which others serve, for services we give, for work and its rewards, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for sorrow we must bear, for failures, pain, and loss, for each new thing we learn, for fearful hours that pass, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, to use to build the common good and make our own days glad.
And now we welcome the delegates to this year's UUA General Assembly. Before we start, I'll just share that we had 3 other delegates who could not be here today. They were Kathy Partridge, Mary Stackpole, and Nicolette Toussaint. So all of you, thank you for representing the fellowship at the GA and for coming today to talk about what happened. I know it was a jam-packed event, and we will not have time to cover everything, so we will cover what we can. Stephanie, could you begin by talking about the GA action that may be the one that affects this congregation and all congregations the most, and that is the change in the bylaws?
Yes. I'm Stephanie Tooley. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm always really happy to talk about bylaws.
Okay.
You love that about me? I was eager to serve as a delegate this year in particular because of this vote. Article 2 is the section of the bylaws where the 7 principles and 6 sources are, and these principles and sources are familiar to many of us. They're in the front of our gray hymnal. We learn about them in Path to Membership class. Our kids learn songs, memorizing them in School of the Spirit. And so changing that part of the bylaws would affect how we talk about what we do. The question before us at the General Assembly was part of a years-long democratic process to update this statement of shared belief. I voted yes on these changes, and I wasn't the only one. As mentioned earlier, just over 80% of the delegates voted to accept the change. In the extensive discussions about this at GA, one argument that many made against this revision went something like this: the principles and sources have served us just fine. I like them. I don't want to change them. I'm comfortable with them. Please leave them alone. For me, the question wasn't, have the principles and sources served us well? The question wasn't, do I like them? The question was, what does our faith need now? Language changes, the world changes, our faith changes, and when we know better, we try to do better. Since we are a living faith, I was voting to adopt the new version now, to put love at the center. And there's an image up here of a chalice with the word love in the center, with 6 petals around it. I wanted my 8-year-old son, Zachary, when he thought about what being a UU meant, to see this picture in his mind with the word love in the center. I wanted him to imagine the words justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity. And I was voting to weave anti-racist language directly into this part of the bylaws. Since the 8th principle, which our congregation had adopted, and which called us to, quote, accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions, was never accepted by the whole of the UUA into the bylaws. I was voting for the reformulation and inclusion of much of the existing language that was more up to date, and I was voting to add covenantal language into Article 2, which means that now in each of the sections about these words, there is a statement about what we do. So we covenant to learn from one another. We covenant to protect the earth. We covenant to dismantle racism. These updates mean that now Article 2 says what we believe and what we do, And I was really proud to get to represent us and to take part in this vote.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to say anything about the Article 2 issue? Yes.
I just want to mention that it was near the end of our time before GA started that it occurred to me that I had no real understanding of how our fellowship as a whole thought about these changes. With all of the challenges of the last couple of years in our transition, I don't think we had sat down and had a vote, even though Scott Yeomans did many kind of talkbacks. It wasn't for the whole congregation. So I set up a very brief straw poll. Only 37 members replied, but it was almost 50-50, keep or change, which I think gives us a slightly different perspective on the desire to change, and also, in reality, the majority are people who either didn't know or had no opinion or didn't want to change. And maybe that's the hardest thing that the whole UUA and our fellowship and all, people have to contend with. What do you do with the people for whom this is a difficulty, a loss, a concern? They may feel like the minority, but maybe they aren't actually the minority. And since there are 300,000 UU members, and only about 10,000 people really had a say, and only a few thousand at GA, what are we to make of that? It was not my vision of democracy, where I wish that every single member had had a vote somewhere along the line. And boy, I wish that would happen next time. That's what I think of democracy being: one person, one vote. So
Thank you.
that was a different point of view.
Okay. Another big activity at this, I'll stand up because I know I'm blocked by, for some seats here, was the adoption of 3 actions of immediate witness and responsive resolutions, the AIWs they're called. They're statements about serious world situations that require us to be immediately engaged and take action of some sort about those issues. One of the AIWs was an AIW expressing solidarity with Palestinians. And then the GA also passed a resolution calling for the immediate release of all the hostages that are being held by Hamas. And that resolution affirmed the real suffering of Jews within the association and beyond. So Janet, I know you have some observation about these 2 issues, and can you share those?
Yes, I'm happy to do that. And I first want to say that, I have some notes I've written, and I apologize for having to read some. We live in a time of deep conflict, and the UUA is not immune to that. UUs are part of our society, and our society is in deep conflict about a lot of issues. There are challenges and gifts that come from trying to craft a statement of unity in the context of this sort of disagreement and heartfelt conflict. Even with the foundation of our shared values, it is really, really hard to do that. And people get hurt, and people feel invisible and misunderstood. Covenantal conversations are hard. Anybody who thinks that it's just kumbaya is missing the point. There was a lot of tension between various factions in the lead up to this vote on this AIW about Palestinian solidarity, both within and of course outside of UU circles. And it continued throughout the week at GA. These disagreements include conflicts between supporters of Israel and supporters of Palestinians, between Zionists and anti-Zionists, between generations, between people who saw this through the lens of anti-Semitism and people who saw this through the lens of colonialism, and even among Jewish folks themselves, including Jewish UUs, about who is to blame for the situation and what should be done. That heated dialogue is confusing to witness for those of us not familiar with the history and forces at play in this conflict. And I admit that for years, I am one of those people who has glazed over at headlines about the Middle East. I'm just like, it's too complicated, I don't know about it, I'll go on to the next topic. And now I had to vote on it as a delegate. As an outsider to the conflict, trying to understand the situation, I listened to as many voices as I could. I talked to people who had been raised with the epigenetic and psychological legacy of intergenerational trauma. Stories of injustices have been passed down and become the lens through which each side views the atrocities of today. The hyperreactivity was obvious and made discernment very difficult. It seems to me that where you pick up the narrative has a big effect on how you view the conflict. And who was the aggressor and who was the victim righteously defending themselves. As UUs in the US, we look at this situation through our own lens, of course. Horrified by the loss of life and the brutality of the war thousands of miles away, but on our news feeds in our pockets every day and funded by our own government, we grasp at straws, trying to find a way to influence the situation toward a resolution that lays within our values. The people who wrote this action of immediate witness felt a moral imperative for UUs to stand with the people of Palestine and who were being so overwhelmingly hurt by Israel's fight with Hamas. The AIW that was presented was, in my opinion, poorly written and unnecessarily inflamed the debate. The process allowed for some discussion and revision, but the resolution in its final form was still deeply flawed. Many Jewish UUs felt invisible, unvalued, and deeply hurt by the language of this resolution. Some of them proposed an additional resolution, which Gloria referred to. It was called a responsive resolution, and it, in fact, was responding not to this AIW, but because of the way the rules went, it was a response to a statement that Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt had made at the beginning of the conflict. And this response specifically called for the release of hostages and was meant to temper the apparent lopsidedness of the AIW. As someone who is not Jewish but loves many Jewish people very deeply, I watched with a heavy heart as claims of anti-Semitism and Zionism were lobbed back and forth and passions got in the way of listening and respecting one another. It was hard to know how to vote, given what I was seeing. The option to wait and craft a better document seemed impossible, given the urgency of the situation in the region, but the damage that would be done by voting something forward that was so flawed was also evident. In the end, I joined the majority, around 70-75% of UU delegates who voted for both the AIW and the responsive resolution. It was a dissatisfying result, and I know of people who left feeling deeply hurt and unseen. Some Jewish UUs are leaving the faith over this conflict. The question remains for me, how do we continue this dialogue in a way that improves our relationship and keeps us in covenant with one another? And as our congregation heads into a period of interim ministry, and introspection in our own congregation, and we will no doubt encounter some conflicts of our own, and how can we improve our skills so that we can share those when these sorts of conflicts arise?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Very, very good questions. Another, yes.
That's an excellent presentation, and I think they did what they needed to do. We're just sorry that Ukraine
exactly.
Mari,
Yes.
yeah, so I will repeat the question. Maria was expressing her disappointment that we didn't have an AIW about Ukraine. It had been the year, I understand, it was presented to the to GA at the year before. There is a long list of things that are presented, a petition to be an AIW, only 3 make the cut. And for reasons I don't understand, the Ukraine one did not make the cut last year. Whatever, yeah, so it didn't do that, and I'm sorry, and I didn't have any control over that, I'm sorry to
Thank
say.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Another AIW that Stephanie is going to talk about is not an international issue, but a very personal, right here and now issue. Stephanie?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the AIW called Centering Love Amidst the Ongoing Impact of COVID-19. And I want to kind of contextualize it by saying that I was really pleased that GA was virtual this year because I take immunosuppressive medications. I'm wary of large crowds, especially during our annual summer surge of COVID-19, like we're experiencing right now. And so a virtual GA meant that I could take part more safely. At GA, we voted by a large margin to accept this AIW, Centering Love Amidst the Ongoing Impact of COVID-19. The AIW described the context of the US government and how it seemed eager to leave the pandemic behind. And in fact, just a few days ago, it was announced that it's now endemic. And, quote, that we've left it behind without sufficient strategies in place to manage the persistent challenges of this virus, exacerbating its disproportionate impact on marginalized groups. I don't think I am eloquent enough to fully describe what it feels like to be treated as disposable because it's inconvenient. But the public and governmental response to COVID-19 has taught me that feeling. And this AIW calls on congregations, including ours, to, quote, communally examine and process the impact of the pandemic on our communities, particularly any urgency we've experienced to relinquish our COVID-19 protocols for the sake of returning to normal. BVUUF has done a lot of good work in this space since the outbreak of COVID-19. Because of our work, the fellowship has been one place of community gathering that I have felt safe. That's because of the policies, the infrastructure we've adopted, excellent air filtration system we have, a mask-affirming culture that's letting me talk to you with this mask on right now, urgings from our pulpit to get immunized, the investment in technology and staff to have multi-platform services. Because of our work together, this sanctuary has been a sanctuary for me for 4 years. So in response to this EAW, I would encourage all of us to become curious about ways in which we have returned to the status quo of 2019 that maybe shouldn't have been status quo in the first place. And I'll give just one quick example of what I mean. One common argument when we're talking about returning to normal says COVID's like the flu now. And I understand this argument to mean that we have long allowed the flu to spread rampantly through our community in the winter, accepting deaths and excluding from public forums people with compromised immune systems or who are elderly. If our project at hand is to re-examine these pre-2019 conceptions, perhaps we shouldn't be letting the flu or COVID spread the way that we do. We should be working for changes in laws and attitudes that allow and encourage people who are sick to stay home from work or school. We should continue to destigmatize mask wearing. We should ask the government to impose air quality standards in public spaces. We should encourage people to get their flu and COVID shots. So this AIW encourages us to look around our community and ask, in our return to normal, in our haste, did we return to a normal that works for all of us, or just to a normal that's convenient for most of us?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Kitty, you have another sort of take on some of the things that happened at GA, and I want you to share, please.
So when I first started reflecting on General Assembly, my first time as a delegate, I thought, how does someone come up with something succinct and meaningful to say out of a vast, complex many hours of listening, reading, chatting, posts that are all filtered through one's particular background, bias, upbringing, neurotype, and more, right? So I realized there's a lot I could talk about and no real way to even scratch the surface. But I've learned it can be rich to taste just a flavor or feeling, even though we can never experience the same thing that was, like little seeds flying off of a long gone flower. So here's what I could talk about. I could talk about peace, my longing for peace and nonviolence to be represented in our UU values, and anxiousness seeing if it would pass and become a part of our stated Article 2 values. It didn't. And I could talk about the tenderness given and received, my love for everyone, literally everyone, and feeling compassion for those who were triggered and for those who were triggering. Thanks. My hope that we can learn both how to avoid harm and also how to repair, how to be in relationship, how to listen to one another and love widely. And I could, hey, thanks. I could talk about the immense care present to give voice to the marginalized, to make spaces that are welcoming for all, especially those who are too often overlooked. I could talk about JetPig. Boy, could I talk about JetPig. Justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, generosity with love at the center. Thank you. Ooh. And the delightful, playful energy bubbling up from congregations and religious educators across the country and wider for many, many months, even years before this historic vote. I could talk about the joy of relating with fellow religious educators around the country, many who I've worked with at regional events and collaborated with, their creativity and dedication and compassionate gifts, their delight in passing the bylaw amendment to value religious educators' credentialing process. And I could talk about you, this congregation, how you were on my heart throughout the process. Who are we? And what are we? And what matters to our hearts? You, the children and the youth and the families that we serve. How do we want to be in this world? What gifts are we blossoming? And what gifts are we receiving? And how will we meet this changing landscape? Finally, I could talk about perhaps the most profound and memorable moment for me from the whole thing, following some probably unintentional but nonetheless hurtful and dehumanizing comments made. Rev Jakarin, not arguing, just ministering, saying only this, which I say to you now, amidst the hurtful voices that we're hearing in our country all around. To my trans, non-binary, intersex, and gender-diverse beloveds, lean in. Lean in. I love you. I love you. I love you. Please do not leave this space or this congregation today without hearing this, without feeling my love and the love of those and others who see you as divine. I love you. You know who you are. I love you. You are worthy of being whoever you need to be to survive and thrive in this world. I love you. I love you, and I will say it for 50 seconds if I need to. I love you, 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 I love you. Do not leave this space without knowing that you are loved. If you need a reminder, call me, email me, text me. What we will not do is let you go another moment believing anything other than the fact that you are loved.
All right. I'm going to stop. Okay. Thank you. That was beautiful. And we are over time. And I am so sorry because there is much more to be said. And if you would like to hear more, coffee hour is one time to do it. And we may want to bring some of these topics back again, is my sense. So thank you. Thank you all. Sorry. A few quick announcements. First of all, today is the last day to sign up for covenant groups for September through May. You probably know covenant groups give you a chance to connect with small groups of people while you explore spiritual themes from the Soul Matters packets. And you can sign up online if you're on Zoom, and you can look for Maggie Kerrigan and Mary Ann Lawler, the Covenant Group co-leaders who will be in Fellowship Hall. Also today, Fellowship Hall, Coffee and Conversation with Elected Leaders is back. This used to happen all the time before COVID. There's been a long break, but it is starting again the second Sunday of every month, and representatives from the board, the Committee on Shared Ministries, and the Leadership Development Committee will be there to talk with you, hear your ideas, and answer questions. So on the stage level in Fellowship Hall. Okay, thank you.
Peppy number 1028, The Fire of Commitment. Teal hymnal number 1028, The Fire of Commitment. Please rise and body your spirit. From the light of days remembered burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the stories of our living rings a song both brave and free, calling pilgrims still to witness to the life of liberty. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our
And now we'll extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this chalice, but not the warmth of love, the light of truth, nor the energy of action. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again. And I now invite you to join hands, link arms, hug yourself if that feels like the best thing for you this morning. And just take in what a rich gathering we are. All of us, every single person here. And may you take the joy and the love and the learning from this gathering into your day, your week, and your life.
And thank you to Tad for being back with us.
Yes. Amen. Blessed be. Blessed be. Yeah.